Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. Our goal around here forever is to bring you great information to help you improve your practice and your life. And we're going to do exactly that today. Do you feel underappreciated at work? Maybe your team members feel underappreciated at work. Well, this podcast today will help you. I bring back an amazing coach that we have on our team. Her name is Michelle Wakeman, and she shares with us the 5 ways to speak appreciation at work, unlocking the languages of gratitude. If you use this, you're going to see it works. So please listen up. I hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. Our goal here is to give you great information to improve everything around, in, and while you're at work to help you create a better practice and a better life. And today I have an amazing guest on today, and we're going to be talking about the 5 ways to speak appreciation. You know, appreciation is such a huge deal at work, in the world, and I know if you're a dentist, you probably feel underappreciated. But I can assure you, the people you work with also feel underappreciated. So I have an amazing coach with us, Michelle Wakeman. She's going to explain what this all means. Michelle, thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Kirk. Always exciting to be on the podcast and chat about all things dentistry. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So take us through this. Why is this subject so important? Because if you don't know already, this is what we do. We coach great practices all over the country and how to get better. But why is this subject so important?
So, Kirk, one of the number one issues or pain points that we tend to hear from our clients in the coaching community is the struggle to either hire, find, or maintain really awesome talent. Ever since COVID, I think that this has been a pretty common pain point across most industries, but we really feel the pinch in dentistry. And so when we're talking about employee retention, I think one of the first things we have to look at is what is keeping our employees, what's keeping our team attached to our office. You know, we talk about differentiation a lot in terms of patients and what we do that's different from the guy down the street, but what do you do for your team that's different from the guy down the street?
Yeah, absolutely. And so to that point, your team members are so different. And a lot of this is grounded in the work of, Gary Chapman, The 5 Languages of Love. So, and if you've ever done any research or read that book, it was pivotal in my relationship with my wife. I've been married for 25 years, and I didn't realize that there were 5 different languages, and Michelle's going to take us through this. And what you do by default is you shower other people with how you feel appreciated, and it isn't always how they feel appreciated. So we're going to talk about that. So you as a dentist, you might be thinking, well, I take them out, to a great Christmas, party once a year, and then I always say thank you. But we're going to go a little bit deeper on that, right, Michelle?
Yeah, and it's so hard, I think, as a practice owner, because you think like, oh my gosh, I do so much for my team, and my job is really hard. I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a manager, I am the assembly line, I'm doing clinical dentistry, and oh my gosh, these people are so thankless. But maybe it's just because you're not thanking them in the right way, in the way that they want to be thanked. So I think you just made a great point with, we have to kind of speak each other's languages.
Right. Exactly. So where do we even start? Like, give us the baseline for this.
Yeah. So you mentioned the 5 love languages, and I think a lot of people are familiar with that. And I think a lot of people are less familiar with the fact that it has been adapted into the 5 languages of Can't speak today. The 5 languages of appreciation for the workplace. That is a mouthful. Say that 5 times fast. So when we're applying this to the workplace, there's a little bit of nuance. For example, if we're talking about physical touch, it's going to look a little bit different as a workplace appreciation than it is the love language. But yeah, we'll go through all of the 5 types as well as how to apply this within your practice to get a better bang for your buck, essentially, when you're showing appreciation to your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want further information on this, like Michelle said, it starts with that book, which is an excellent book. And if you care about your team, I think it's a great place to start just to learn a little bit more of how each works and what do they mean. So take us through it. So what are the 5 languages of appreciation?
So great question. So they do parallel very much the 5 love languages. And the first one is words of affirmation. Then we've got quality time, acts of service, gifts, and finally physical touch. So I'd like to go through all 5 as well as how likely it is that each of your team members might fall into that particular category.
Totally. So let's start with words of affirmation, because that's what I love the most, and that's my love language and language of appreciation. But like, this isn't about me. This is about providing value. So, and I think you'll see where you are on each one of these if you listen to each one. So take us through that one.
So I'm a words of affirmation gal myself. And to be fair, we're in good company, Kirk. So about 46% of the population actually falls into that words of affirmation, really being their language of appreciation. And when we're talking about words of affirmation, they don't always have to be verbal. The written word, I think, is a really, really great way to show people how much you appreciate them. I worked with a practice owner who, I'm dating myself here, we got paper pay stubs. And so every time he gave us out our pay stubs at the end of our 2-week cycle, he would actually write a little note on there about each individual and how he was grateful for you. And to make that even a little more fun, his handwriting was atrocious. So we would actually get together and try to decipher what he had written for us in our thank yous each week. And so that's something that's always stuck with me because that is my language of appreciation. It meant a lot to me when I actually picked up that pay stub. I looked forward to it. Yeah,
absolutely. And so being that that's mine, when somebody says, oh, I really appreciate you, or thank you, or and you can also see this with your kids too. Now, I don't want to go off rails here, but you can see each one of your children. If you have more than one, you'll see they also have different love languages. And so appreciation is very easy for me to give because it's how I receive it. And so when Sarah and I started doing this, it was like a compliment from my wife. I could live on that for like 2 weeks. It was like amazing. It was like, wow, that is so cool. And we'll keep going because there's more to the story here. So number 2 is quality time. So explain that one.
Yeah. So, this one can be a little bit more ambiguous, but it is the second most common language of appreciation. And this is a really interesting statistic. So did you know that if we're talking about our younger population, so probably younger millennials and lower, about 35% of them really identify with quality of time as being their language of appreciation. Only 20% of older team members, though, really identify that as being their language of appreciation. I just thought that was a really interesting statistic, and not sure what the sociology is behind that. But it is interesting to note that for younger team members, they really crave that time, that really one-on-one quality time with their leaders.
Yeah. I know if you're listening to this, you're thinking, well, how do I do this? Like, some people want time, some people want affirmation. We'll kind of wrap this in a bow at the end, but I think it's important because I see it even here at the ACT Dental team. There are some people that really appreciate the time. Now, if you're like me, you're like, well, I don't have an abundance of time and like sitting down with everybody and making sure that their needs are met. That's not what we're saying. I think it starts with understanding these 5 languages, but and I'll step out of the workplace. So just to bring you guys in the conversation, because you guys are all friends, all thousands of people that down. My wife's appreciation, her love language is time. So just to translate personal in a little bit, I used to shower my wife with my love language, which was appreciation or words of affirmation. And she loves time. So I could tell her all the compliments in the world. And yes, she does appreciate. But man, when I spend 3 hours with her, she's like, that was so fun. That was so fun. I'm like, well, wow, that was a lot of time, but she just loves that time. And again, for me, when I first learned of this, it was a huge epiphany. It was like, oh my goodness. And that's where I'm going to encourage the listener to start is just learn each of the people around you's their language of appreciation. So keep going with this. So number 3 is acts of service. What is that?
Exactly. So acts of service, that's doing something for someone. If we take it into the home, my husband's an acts of service guy. Like if I unload the dishwasher, he's like, she loves me. Mm-hmm. So in the dental office, think of it as helping out with things that need help. So again, worked with a great business owner who I would be in the middle of perio charting and he would see, because I would call the numbers out loud to my patient, he would pop over if he was in between patients and just start typing for me, just start recording those numbers. And that always meant a lot to me. Like, oh, that's great. Like he's coming over and popping in those numbers, felt appreciated. He'd go in and clean a room if he saw that our assistants were behind, or would say, hey, you go grab lunch while I take care of this. So it's seeing what needs to be done to help that person out in the moment and taking care of it. It doesn't have to be a grandiose gesture. Just for those people that acts of service are something that means a lot to them, pop in and just do what needs to be done. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big one. And it's hard to give that one a name, but acts of service pretty much nails it. And then the 4th language of appreciation is gifts. Now, I struggle with this one. Can you explain what that is? And then what does that mean in the workplace? And how does it compare in our personal lives? Yeah, so it's funny. I hear a lot of doctors, and I think that they really think that this is the primary appreciation language for most of their team members. They think like, if I'm showing appreciation, I need to give them something. Right. And the reality is that only 7% of the population identify gifts as being their primary language of appreciation. So it might not be that your team members really want to receive gifts. I mean, everybody loves a gift, don't get me wrong, but it might not be what they need to feel appreciated. And if it is their language of appreciation, it doesn't have to be something that costs a ton of money. Really, it should be something that's thoughtful. If you know that team member really loves a certain coffee shop that's not a national chain, maybe make an effort to grab a coffee for them in the morning and bring it in and just have it sitting at their desk. Or maybe you know what their favorite candy is and they walk in the morning and you've popped a couple Reese's on top of their keyboard. And so they're surprised with that in the morning. So again, it doesn't have to be anything huge. It's more of a specific, I'm thinking of you. And so I got this specific thing that I know you enjoy. What would we get for Heather, our amazing coach at ACT, if we wanted to show our appreciation for her and gifts were her love language?
Diet Coke, right?
Diet Coke.
Did I get that right?
You did. You did. I tried to stump you and you got it. Yeah, you did stump me. And you're right. Just basically learning what people love and what they appreciate. And keeping a list of that is a great place to start, because even if it's little, it means the world to them. Barrett loves M&Ms. Now, I don't know if he's a gifts person, but you can see Julie around here will put a little cup of M&Ms. And I don't know if that's, he's like, don't do that. And he'll eat them all. So it's pretty cool. That's so cool. Now, again, these gifts aren't always like, I want to get away from like, I have to buy my team gifts. Sometimes I kind of lump them together, acts of service and gifts. But if you find out what your team members like, it's amazing how much they can appreciate you. Now, I do have a gift favorite. Like, I love IPAs, you know what I mean? And so at the end of a day or whatever,
Andy or Julie or, Barrett will bring, and they already know, like, oh, he likes an IPA. And even if I don't want one, I'm like, oh, you're tempting me with my favorite thing at the end of the day. So that's so cool. Now, number 5 is physical touch. Explain that one in the workplace.
Yeah. Now let's remember that this is SFW, or safe for work physical touch. Let's not get HR involved. So physical touch in the workplace is going to be, fist bumps, high fives. It might be a hug. Some teammates really love a good hug. Some would really rather you not. So this one is a really important one to identify, okay, is this person's language of appreciation? But you can't go wrong with a like, hey, great job, high five, or a quick little fist bump, little pat on the back even.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really culture specific.
Sure.
For me, like the high five is like the cornerstone. I think everybody should try to aspire just to make that like the key. I think if you're giving a lot of fives and getting a lot of high fives, or as Miranda would say, I always appreciate a really good high five. It shows good things, because a high five, you're just not giving them out. I don't give them out just because. You usually give them out. There's some good merit behind them. And if you create a good culture of that back and forth, and then ultimately, if you create more of a family environment, you're going to obviously transition into hugs and appropriate hugs type of a thing. But I totally agree. You can see it does change the culture when people high five or fist bumps. Fist bumps are a great one on the base. I'm sure, hockey players, they probably do. I don't know.
A lot of fist bumping.
It's a lot of fist bumps, or like a lot of,
or maybe punches to the face. It's always like this.
That wasn't what I was thinking, but it's definitely physical.
I think it might be their language of appreciation, actually.
It might be. Who knows?
Might be. Yeah.
All right.
I do want to circle back to something you just said, though, Kirk. So you said, specific to the culture, and I think that is the most important piece of this. When you show appreciation or gratitude, make it genuine. It can't be just done you can't just check the box. Like, oh, I showed my gratitude. I said thank you. Say thank you for something that's really specific. Make sure that it's something that matters and that you genuinely feel gratitude for. Otherwise, people know. People can tell when you're being disingenuous.
Yeah, totally. And so being authentic and expressing it, and using these 5 channels, whether they be intentional, you're probably going to do it accidental first, but my hope through this podcast is you'll start to use them intentionally. So that becomes the question. Michelle, how do we use all this? You've given me the 5, but where do I start?
Yeah, so like all things at ACT, and I love our system because it works, you need a system.
Right.
So the best way to make sure that this is something that really becomes part of your culture is to systematize it. So what's the first step? The first step is figuring out what is your team's language of appreciation. There are a ton of free resources. I mean, you can literally just Google, 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, free quiz. You could have team members just self-identify which one they feel like they are. And then let's write it down. Let's have them fill out a survey on what they appreciate. Do they prefer to receive recognition as part of a group? Guilty. Like I love a good core values medal in front of the entire team.
Right.
But someone else might like to receive that kind of information privately. They don't like to be in front of a group. So identifying how they like to receive that appreciation and when and where. We have different members of the community that have actually created spreadsheets, and they've shared it on our community page. So if you're not a member of the BPA, get in there. They're sharing some great things and really keeping track of what your team members like. And while you're at it, fill one out for yourself. Your team does want to show you some appreciation. So make sure they know what you like and how you prefer to receive appreciation, because you said at the beginning of this podcast, it can be a thankless job being a dentist and being a practice owner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you're speaking specifically. Many people have done this in the BPA, but if you go back in the BPA, you're going to see people share their internal systems. And Kevin Groth shared, shout out to you, brother, he shared his team appreciation list. So he did exactly what you're talking about, did a team appreciation survey, and found out the nuances of each one of his team members and what they like, what they enjoy, what's their favorite drink? What's their, all of these things. He took the time to learn all of that stuff. And just by doing that, you can have a list of things and you can certainly make people feel appreciated. Now, another thing, I'm going to go back to what you said, which is having a system for this. I'm a big fan, and we are big fans of having downtime at work, not just patient-facing work, time at the office or in the practice. And that includes a weekly team meeting, morning huddles. And if you don't do those, you're going to be challenged to use any of this information because you're going to do a flyby every once in a while and just try to do that. But systematically, if you got downtime, which would include a quarterly meeting, a weekly team meeting, which we highly encourage people to do for 2 hours. And I know what you're thinking. If you're a dentist, you're like, what would I do for 2 hours? Well, if you do it right, 2 hours isn't enough because you're fixing problems before they even happen. And you do morning huddles, without getting into the content of what that actually happens, you could weave the appreciation into these. Like, I'll give you an example. We did our team meeting last week where we essentially shut our company down for a week, and we plan, we organize, we rework our strategy, share with our team. And so what Michelle's talking about, like we do our core values shout outs, we do our team appreciation thing. And so it's scheduled downtime to let people know how much we appreciate you and utilize this as much as possible. So, Michelle, I love this. I think this is an absolute cornerstone. The big question becomes for every dentist now is like, what's the biggest challenge? And does this really matter to you? And my hope is by listening to this, you do care about your team. You do care about creating a great culture. You do care about how people feel working for you. And now the question becomes, what do you do that supports that you just said that? So give us some final takeaways, Michelle. What else should we know about this?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, don't make it hard. Just get in there and do it. Just tell people that you appreciate them, show them that you appreciate them, and try to do it in their language. And like you just shared, you should absolutely have that time built into your schedule to really land the plane and do the maintenance on the office, and take that time to ask your team about this and ask where they fall. And you could even have them do a quick brainstorm on what is an example of how you'd like to be shown an acts of service language. What does that mean to you? I think it's a great idea to incorporate the team in that. And again, reach out to us. We are happy to help coach you through any of this at any time. It's, again, just one more thing to help make your culture healthier, make your team happier, more productive, and again, just have you have a better practice and a better life. Enjoy coming to work because everyone's feeling good and feeling appreciative and ready to tackle the day.
Yeah, absolutely. One more piece. You just help remind me, we talk about scheduled downtime and we call them communication rhythms. A valuable one that I totally left out was the check-in. While the check-in is a system, it's a systematic way to sit down with your team members and find out what their, personal highs and personal lows and business highs and business lows are. But you could certainly weave this in a 30-minute check-in with a team member if you know that appreciation or affirmation is a big one for them, or gifts, or time. You're also naturally, just by doing that, building in quality time where it's just you and I one-on-one. So one of your questions among many is like, well, how would I do this? And our answer is always systematically. So great stuff, Michelle. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I always love talking about the happy stuff within the practice, and, again, easy way to just improve your culture. And I think that that's one of the cornerstones, and it's going to be one of the cornerstones in the future of ensuring that you do retain some of the top talent that's out there.
Amen. I totally agree. So stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show podcast. This stuff is important. If you find great team members, they're going to want to be part of meaningful work in the future. And your job as an entrepreneur is to create a systematic way that people feel heard, they feel appreciated, and they say to themselves when they go home, like, it might not have been perfect today, but I enjoy who I am as a result of being here. And if you follow this process of the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, make sure you get the book by Gary Chapman. It really illustrates this and goes further into the data and the science behind it. You're going to absolutely love it. So keep showing up. We're going to keep bringing it. And thank you guys so much for everything. So until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. You guys enjoy your day.